we come to church week after week, and we see each other, but we don't always know what's going on in each other's lives. And there's certain of our members and those who attend the church here at Orange Cove who are very unassuming. They don't say too much, and they don't fill a very prominent role. They're in the background helping to keep the wheels turning here at Orange Cove. And one of these members, his name is Glen Schilds. Just a very quiet, soft-spoken, gentle-spirited man. I was attending the graduation celebration of his son Brennan. I think it was close to 2 years ago. And during this graduation celebration, Glen got up and gave a testimony that kept me captivated for the entire time that he was speaking. And as you know, I'm a pastor that believes that each member in the church is a minister. Each member in the church has been called by God to first of all live their lives as a testimony to everyone who sees them. Because that is the most powerful. And I can honestly say, since the day that I met Glen, he is one of those people who lives his life, doesn't say much, but his life is a testimony to what God's grace and mercy really mean. And so as I was listening to Glen's testimony, what has happened in his family, I was choked up. It overwhelmed me. And afterwards, I went to him and I just said to him, Glen, how would you feel about sharing that with the Orange Cove Church family? And Glen says, well, I don't think I could do it. I said, Glen, this is a story, this is a testimony that needs to be told. This is powerful. And I said, I could never tell this story the way you could tell it. And so I want to read to you the importance of testimony. And I'm speaking of two types of testimony here. The one is the way we live our lives without saying a word. And the other one is repeating what God has done in our lives for us. And in Revelation chapter 12, verse 10, it says, Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now the salvation and strength and kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ has come. For the accuser of the brethren, who has accused them before our God day and night, has been cast out. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and how? By the word of their testimony. By the word of their testimony. And so this morning, it is my privilege to introduce you to Glen Schilds. I'm going to ask him to come up and do exactly what he did that day at the graduation. Just tell the same story. Because I really believe that it's worth repeating over and over again. And I'm so glad that the sound team are up with the cameras, that we can record it, and that it can be an ongoing testimony for what God has done.
I'd like to open with a word of prayer, please. Dear Heavenly Father, this is very unfamiliar territory for me. Please be with me, guide me, put the words in my mouth. Allow me to give you glory in showing what you did for me and my family through our stressful time. I pray this in your name, amen. As Pastor said, my name is Glen Schilds. We've lived in the Orange Park area here now for 15 years, me and my family, and we moved here from Williston, North Dakota, which the area I grew up in pretty much, and I got married, had 2 children, both of them which were premature children, unfortunately, but with God's grace, they grew up and doing well. I just want to say before I start, not all premature children are effects of drugs and alcohol and stuff. You know, they advertise it all the time and stuff. And this year with my family, that was not the case. I just want to say that. The story I'm about to bring to you is about my youngest son, Brennan. It all started out, we were in Bismarck, North Dakota at the time. Nick, Gretchen, and myself. We were there because I was taking my test to become a master plumber. Exciting time, stressful time as far as taking tests and stuff like that. But everything went well, passed it, was really very pleased and thankful. When I got back to the motel, Gretchen said, why don't we just go have a picnic and relax, enjoy the day a little bit. That way Nicholas, he was quite young at the time, he was 5 years old. Let him run off a little bit of energy before we head home. It was a 3.5-hour drive, little kids, that's quite a drive for little kids and stuff like that. So I thought, well, that sounds really nice. So we did that, and we had our picnic and stuff, and all of a sudden here, Brennan, he hands me this here, a card. I thought, well, it's pretty sweet, you know. You give me a card for congratulations of passing my test, you know. Feeling kind of, you know, good with all that and stuff. And open up the card, and it says, "Hey, Dad, congratulations, I'm going to have a baby brother." There I was from excitement of my test, and all of a sudden, huh? You know, I know it was the wrong reaction that my wife was expecting, but, and then came the memories of the past pregnancy and stuff, and it was a rough pregnancy and all and stuff, so then the nerves kind of hit in and stuff. So, and then she goes on and tells me, while I was taking my test, she was in a doctor's office, a specialist's office, and getting checked out because she was having terribly dizzy spells and blackouts. But she never told me that because she didn't want to make me nervous with my test. So, well, we went home and stuff, and she did have her dizzy spells. She had a lot of, you know, cramping and this and that went on, but everything was going quite smoothly, you know. I mean, well, to what we expected anyway and stuff. But then all of a sudden, you know, with rough pregnancies and stuff like that, you end up with the cramps, and then the spotting starts showing up and stuff, and that really brings the nerves to it because, you know, you have this here feeling in you that you need, you know, a fetus needs at least 24 months in the mother before they're old enough or develop enough where they can actually save a child, because, you know, lungs develop quite late, and there's lots of things that can happen, and very, very few do survive. The odds are very light before 24 weeks, I meant, 24 weeks gestational. So we, you know, just prayed that, you know, get us there, please. Well, we made the 24 weeks, and then we got to 25, and I remember it was a Sunday. I was kind of excited. We were going to watch a little football and stuff like that, enjoy the day. But the day kind of started out a little rough. Cramps were getting kind of rough. All of a sudden, it was gotten into contractions. And so we thought we better get to the hospital and just make sure things are going all right and stuff like that, because that way we can see what's going on. So we went to the hospital. They hooked her up to the monitor. They put the belt on to read the heart rate and stuff of the baby. The heart rate of the baby, it was stressing. The heart rate was quite fast. Contractions, they'd start and they'd stop, and they'd start and they'd stop. And the OBGYN that was there, he was the top one of the hospital, but the only problem is, and he told us that, Moby knew it though too. He says, I can save the mom at this point, but the baby I can't. We don't have the facilities here to support a child of that size and stuff like that. It's just, we're not a prenatal facility. So what we needed to do is, if all worked out well, get things stabilized, enable enough to get her out to another hospital. Helicopter was in Minot, which was 100 miles away, but that didn't take long for a helicopter to get over. But so they called in the helicopter to come. There's medications to stop contractions, but there weren't as many as there are probably now and stuff. The main one was called Ritalin. They gave Gretchen Ritalin when our oldest son we had problems with his pregnancy to stop the contractions. Problem is, she had an allergic reaction to it, and it caused her to stop breathing for a while and stuff. So we couldn't do that again. So that kind of kept us away from giving medications to that point as far as stopping that. And as far as other medications, you have to be very careful, because anything you put in the mother's body goes into the child's body. So it kind of restricts. Things started simmering down a little bit as far as her contractions. We thought, and the child, if we stay at this here point, we'll be able to get her, she'll be able to take the flight, because they didn't want to get halfway and end up with a terrible situation and stuff, of course. We were 230 miles away. Bismarck Hospital is where we had to go. That was 230 miles away. I knew I better get going. They wouldn't take me with on the helicopter, so I had to find my own way, which is fine. So we called up my folks. They lived 100 miles away from Bismarck. Asked them if they could, at least meet Gretchen there, so when she lands, there's somebody, some family there anyway for her. And they said they would. And then maybe they can take care of Nicholas, if we need to stay and whatever happens and stuff like that, and of course. So I took off from the hospital, picked up Nick from some friends' places where he was staying, packed up some stuff. I think Gretchen had a bag set up for her probably, and some clothes for Nick and myself and stuff, and checked back on her, and everything was going okay at the time and stuff like that. So away I went. Time to go. In 1994, cell phones weren't as they are right now. So I was sitting. You're sitting on a 3.5-hour trip, not knowing what's ahead. I mean, I couldn't call nobody. I didn't have a cell phone. Nothing like that. So Brennan or Nick, he talked. He did good, you know. He visited, you know, tried to keep mind off of things a little bit and stuff, and we'd visit. But yet you kept thinking, you know, wondering, you know, what am I going to find? Are they, you know, did they take off even, you know, because they didn't leave yet when I left, you know, which was kind of, I guess, a gamble. Did they leave? I mean, how's things going? Are they there? What am I going to find? Are they going to be okay? We made it there. Got out of the elevator to the floor where they were at and stuff like that, and my folks were there. They told me that, you know, Gretchen made it, but they couldn't wait. They had to get the baby out quick as soon as they got there and stuff. So the baby, he was born, and that he was quite small. Well, I asked Dad, what's small? And he said 1 pound, 15 ounces. I thought, oh dear, that's, yeah. All I heard was the 1, I guess the 15, at least we were up close to 2, you know, but. So anyway, I checked to make sure she was okay. Then I went on in to check on Brennan. That was quite a sight, I tell you. I mean, there's not much there. It's just this little tiny little thing, you know. That at that time they had wires all over him and tubes all over him and this and that. And I tell you, I can take quite a bit, but that time it made me sit down. You know, I just thought, you know, dear God, am I taking this one home? But it wasn't in his hands. I mean, and there were good doctors there and stuff. So all around, he was healthy. I mean, what they could tell and stuff like that, everything was. He was on a respirator, and the feeding tubes were in him, and you know, all monitored. They put him in the little isolate. Got to keep him warm because a baby that size can't maintain his own temperature. And you got to keep them where it's quiet. Harsh noise, you know, sudden noises, quick noises, when they're that size, I guess what they said can cause bursts in blood vessels in the brain by quick reactions and stuff like that too. So it's got to be a pretty quiet area, dim lights and stuff. Well, they had over his eyes anyway, pretty much a kind of a cover deal. So we, you know. So we were thankful we were in, at least we were there. He was in the situation he was in. He was healthy as best could be. And so, you know, we were pleased at that point anyway. It's still exciting to see him, you know. Day, I guess, went through the night. And the next day and stuff, the doctors came up to us and said that one little problem we have, and it was a patent ducted arteriosus. And what that is patent ductus arteriosus, yeah, abductus. When you're inside the mother's womb, your lungs aren't, of course, taking in oxygen. They're not being used, so they're just kind of relaxed. He's getting his oxygen through the blood, through the mother, from the umbilical cord and the placenta. So what is going on is the blood isn't flowing through the lungs at full capacity. You have this here little vessel, which is called the ductus arteriosus. Patent means open, that it was still open. Typically in a normal baby after they're born and the lungs take in air, the blood flows through the lungs at a higher pace, it'll close off this here automatically. But in premature children, that's typically typically doesn't happen. And so they were gonna have to do a surgery on him. And surgery on a little one, maybe to them, I guess, they do it all the time, but to us, they thought, wow, putting him under already, you know. What they had to do is, on the left side of his back, they had to go between two of his ribs and pull the ribs apart and get access from that area to be able to get to that vessel to tie it off or close it, whatever they needed to do and stuff like that. So that's what they did. And the surgery went well, and he did good. So we're very thankful in that made it through that step. Things stabilized and all, and they got to move him into the NIC unit where they just do his cares and watch over him, 24 hours. It's always somebody with him pretty much and stuff like that. Gretchen stayed with him all the time. I mean, she was a nurse. She understood the terminology. She understood what they were talking about, the care and stuff, and she enjoyed pediatrics and whatever. And a big blessing just came across us that the doctor came to her and said that the wing next to the pediatrics wing was closed for low senses. There's nobody there. You're welcome to take one of the rooms, stay there. Yeah. How nice is that? We thought, probably McDonald's house or something like that, which is, a few blocks away and stuff like that, which we thought we were going to be okay. But for her to be able to stay right there 24 hours, she could eat in the cafeteria what she, as she wanted and stuff, and she could be with Brennan whenever she wished to be. Yeah, it was nice. They allowed her to do most of his care. I mean, she'd wash him. She'd pretty much do anything other than the meds and stuff that, well, you just can't let somebody else do because of law and whatever and stuff. But she was with him pretty much the whole time. He was doing good. He started gaining weight. Weight was slow. Well, also, let's say she was hoping to do the nursing and stuff like that. But with a child this here size, they can't drink. Definitely from the mother. They can't from a bottle yet because they have the tubes going down their throat and in their nose and stuff like that with the respirator and all. And so it was just strictly fed through the tube with this here syringe. She provided the nutritious milk that he needed and stuff like that, so she always had that ready for him and stuff. So little tiny bit at a time, slowly drips, I guess, until as time went, then they'd increase it and as needed, as he could handle it, I guess. And also they had a mock bottle that was with him as he did grow up, where he as they fed him, they made it at more segment times and stuff like that. They'd have that bottle there that he would get used to that for the future and stuff like that, because kids, if you don't do something, they'll totally forget about what their normal things they do, would be expected to do as far as nursing and drinking from a bottle. Like I say, he was doing good. He was gaining some weight. He got himself up, 2 pounds, back to 2 pounds, because he lost a little weight, after they're born and stuff like that. It took a while. We made it to 3 pounds. Sats were sitting nice. He was just really doing well. We were quite pleased with him, slowly gaining, and could see things coming. Children don't usually go home. They kind of look at 5 pounds for children to finally go home is what it's kind of is what they go by anyway, because they're usually ready by then and stuff. She was there for quite a while. I'd go home and work and whatever and come back on weekends and stuff because it didn't pay for me to sit there. I mean, she she was doing it, not me, I mean, that way and stuff. And I told her, I said, you know, he was doing so well and stuff. I says, why don't you, you know, maybe you should break away and just for a week, you know, maybe, or a few days or something like that, and just come home, you know, relax, catch up on some other stuff a little bit, you know, since he's doing all right, and then, you know, because get away from that stress. But I don't know, I guess getting away from a mother away from her child isn't really what you call getting away from stress. But she agreed finally, and she did come home. She'd call in quite often to make sure everything was okay and stuff like that, see how his stats were and stuff like that, and whatever. And one day went by, it went all right. Second day, he seemed like he was kind of acting a little strange, the nurse said. The third day, he started decreasing for some reason. Stats started dropping. He was, for some reason, going in a backwards flow for some reason. I don't know what was going on. Well, we heard that. We thought, oh no, you know, what's going on? Well, we waited another day, and it kept decreasing. He started having to turn up his oxygen a little bit more and stuff. We thought, well, we best get up there. So he took off, went back up to Bismarck. And she went back to doing her thing with him, you know, talking to him, and touching him, and whatever, and stuff like that, and caring for him and all. The next day, his stats started going up. And they never went down again. I tell you what, that a mother's love is amazing, powerful. That I don't know, proved it to me. There's no other, you know. I mean, God is definitely love, but the mother's next, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, everything kept on going forward. He gained his weight, you know, kept on going with that. On November 13th, finally, they were able to take him out of the isolate. He was able to maintain his own temperature. He was around 4 pounds, I'd say. Everything just at that time, everything started kind of clicking. They took the respirator off. They were able to remove that, get the flow of oxygen away from him. They still had to, you know, pap him a little bit and stuff. Started working on feeding him with a bottle. And that was quite a process. That was pretty slow stuff there. He was slow drinking, but you just had to be relaxed and just take your time, and an ounce would just, you know, slowly go and stuff like that. But he was gaining. He was getting used to it. And that's a big step. I mean, you can't take a child home if he's not drinking and stuff. November 26th, we were able to take him home. He stayed in that room the night before with Gretchen. She took his care. She had an oxygen bottle there with him all the time. He was on a monitor, a heart rate monitor and stuff, and they had a deal showing on his sats and stuff like that. But when they took that off, you know, you watch their lips. If you have a light oxygen, you can see it on a child's face pretty quick. But everything went well. So taking him home, that was a big deal. It was nice to see him. Nice to finally see him there. As we started putting him on foods, a little bit at a time, and stuff like that. Seemed like he was having some problems as far as, you going to the bathroom. And we'd end up he'd cry and whatever, and we'd end up having to give him suppositories. He just did not have the muscle down in his lower areas and stuff like that. Even as far as sitting up, you'd prop a little baby up, and he'd just kind of droop all the time. The strength wasn't there in his lower here. So we went to therapies and stuff like that, and they gave us some certain exercises to work with him. That's what they said, that his muscles are just so undeveloped and stuff like that. There's no strength in there, so they need to strengthen that up. So they gave us a ball that we'd put on the ground and just lay him on there, rolling back and forth. That exercises stump muscles and stuff like that, and different stretches, his legs, and different types of activities that would help those muscles grow. It helped. I mean, it got better as time went and stuff like that. And then as he kept growing, well, then it was time for him to walk. And he'd be on his tiptoes just constantly, and it seemed like he was, tight in his legs and whatever. So we also had him checked to see, why is he, what's going on here? And they checked his ranges and stuff like that, and his flexibilities. And with the checkups that they did, he determined that he had with his muscle weaknesses and stuff like that, it was determined that he had a slight case of cerebral palsy in his lower extremities. And cerebral palsy, what that is your muscles don't grow at the speed of your bones. They're kind of tight, and if you don't keep up with keeping them stretched or whatever, or if you get extreme cases and whatever, you get deformations, your bones will twist, and you end up with a child that is handicapped and whatever. So, which was kind of scary. They said, let's get going with some extreme motion, some stretching techniques. As you give him a bath or whatever, when his muscles are warm his legs up. Stretch. All types of different things. Also, they had us go to an orthotics place, and they casted his legs and made a mold for inserts, I guess, but they went all the way up to the top of his calf, so that way it held his leg, and then it propped up the front of his feet upward a little bit, which would allow him to, stretch them back, heel cords and stuff like that, give it a little bit more stretch. So there he is, kept up with the therapy. We kept going back to Bismarck because that was his main doctor was there, and they had more pediatric type therapists, specialists there and stuff like that. So we do a lot of the therapy back in Williston, but once a month at least we'd go back to them, and they'd measure him, see how how things were progressing, or if they were, and just keeping a pretty close eye on him and whatever. As time went, the stretching like that was just not keeping up. His ranges weren't too great and stuff like that, and they said, we got to do something different. And what the orthopedic man said that it's what we need to do is start him on Botox injections. And what that is, it's injections they'd inject it in the back of his leg in the areas where the muscle attaches to the bone. And so what they did is when we went up there, they took him and they put some salve on his legs to kind of somewhat deaden the area and stuff. And that was on him for about 30 minutes or so, and then they we'd put him on this here table face down. And I had his shoulders, and Gretchen was back with his legs and stuff. And they hooked up monitors onto his legs because they had to pinpoint those areas that they needed to hit with this here Botox. And that was one of the worst experiences of my life. Because you got this child that is, they try to deaden it, but it doesn't. And he's looking at you. He's crying. You read it in his face, Dad, what are you doing? Letting them do this to me. And but you knew that it was for his best. So you just comfort him the best you can and let it go. 13 shots in one leg, and they dig, they'd work it, until they find them spots, and then they had to go to the other leg too and stuff, But it worked. What the Botox does is it paralyzes the muscle. And that gives you the ability, or paralyzes something within the muscle anyway, that gives you the ability to be able to work on stretching it. It's not fighting against you as much as if you didn't do that. And so therapy, we had a lot of therapy, stretching, and working the legs, and and we gained, it was going well. The doctor said, in several months, or 9 months or something like that, he says, we might, it'll wear off, we'll probably have to do it again. But we'll just keep watching if he's doing well, that's wonderful. And we'll just continue, but if he starts, tightening up a little bit, we'll just have to do the injections again. And we did. But as he was growing, and it was keeping up. The bones were staying good, and everything was working out fine. As far as the lungs and stuff like that, we're switching gears to this. His lungs were quite premature and stuff, and it didn't take him much to get pneumonia and respiratory. He'd start rasping in the chest very quickly with lots of situations. Worst of it was kind of the cold temperatures. Had to be very careful with him. If we ever did take him out, we'd have to blanket him up pretty tight and have him really tucked in, and you wouldn't keep him out very long. It was from a car to car or whatever, to house, or quick dashes, One time, actually, we were driving down the street, and we had the vent on, and another car pulled up to us, and the guy was smoking, and all of a sudden the smoke, we could just smell it strong, hit the car, into the car and stuff. I thought, oh no. And the next day he was all messed up. His lungs were just a mess. And then so treatments, to get that stuff out of him and stuff, straighten him out. Tap, you'd give him the treatments and you'd pat him and stuff like that, which would loosen up kick it loose out of his lungs and stuff like that. And so it was, you always had to be very careful with him as far as his lungs, because, like I say, it didn't take much to flare them little lungs up. So, where am I? He started, as time went and stuff like that with his lungs, he started getting better. Less episodes. It was making improvement, as he was getting older, his lungs were getting stronger, I suppose, as time went and stuff like that. So we thought we were getting fairly safe, we were pleased that things were improving anyway and stuff. All of a sudden, something hit him. I don't know where he got it or how that came about anyway. But he ended up with pneumonia. He ended up with the RSV virus. And that's an infection in the lungs and in the respiratory tract. And he didn't need that. That was one of the worst things that, well, not one of the worst, but a terrible thing that could have happened to him. Because that just, well, he was in the hospital, he was in the tent, he fought through it with the medications that they give him and stuff like that, and but it took away pretty much every gain that we had, that we, thought we had and stuff. So we started again with a week-long child and stuff, because it did damage. So as time went, he was getting older and stuff. 5 years old. It's time for him to, it's time for him to, think about school and stuff like that. I mean, I guess homeschool, you didn't hear quite as much at that time and stuff like that. I guess that would have been an option, but we thought we need to think about maybe moving, because 45 degrees, it seemed like when if he breathed in something around 45 degrees, he sure as the world would end up deep rasps and light touch pneumonia, things, stuff like that, and you can't just constantly do that. I mean, you give him steroids and you just can't keep doing that. So we considered Florida. Gretchen's folks lived down in this area. We thought, well, if we're moving away from my family, as far as my kids growing up around relatives and stuff like that, at least I guess we should at least they're in a good area. We should at least consider that area at least. So that was in our minds for quite a while. But that's a big decision you had to make. As around that time too, the Botox injections, it was at the third time, and the results weren't as good. I mean, we could see that it was our last time with that injection. There's going to have to be something else to keep up, because there's a lot of growing left to a child after 5, and we got to keep them muscles stretched. Heard about some doctors. They referred to us in Minneapolis. A group of doctors wanted to see him and give a determination on what they could do for him. So we went to Minneapolis. What they wanted to do, they checked him out, and what they wanted to do was, I guess, there's nerve endings and stuff like that in your tailbone. They wanted to open up the tailbone and locate certain nerve endings and stuff, and burn the certain ones that would be causing tension or would affect the muscles that we were working with. And no, that we couldn't do that. That just didn't seem right, anyway, to us. So we chose not to do that. We looked for something different. In the meantime, Gretchen and the kids moved up to Florida here, and she started looking for doctors around here to see what they can find as far as taking care of him, as far as with both his lungs and his legs. I stayed home. I was in a project. It was impossible for me to leave at the time. I was working at the hospital. We had something that needed to be taken care of. So I stayed there. In the meantime, got the house ready for sale and sold our belongings, what we needed to sell, and get ready to move. So I came up later, got the house sold, came on up here. Everything went smoothly. I mean, the way things sold in the time manner and stuff like that, it almost seemed like we were supposed to move. It was surprising, which made us feel a little bit better about it. I mean, maybe there is a reason for this. We did find a doctor. He checked out Brennan. This was with his lung or his legs. He says he has studied and found. He says is what we need to do is go ahead and have surgery on his legs. What they'll do is cut his hamstrings and then go to his heel cords and notch them. And then that would allow the ability to stretch. He says, cut his hamstring, we thought, how in the world? He says that it finds its way back. I don't know, maybe I'm misinterpreted, but that's what he said. And we trusted that. He had a surgery. He was in casts for good 3 weeks or so. After they took the casts off, extreme therapy on him. We were in there quite often. They showed us what to do. Work it, just keep stretching it, certain these here, and it was working. The doctor said, he was pleased with how it went. He said it's very possible, he says, that maybe down the road we might end up having to do it again, he says, but let's just watch it and let's see how it goes. Well, he kept getting older, kept the stretching. He knew how to stretch. He stretched himself. He kept at it. It just kept on. His ranges stayed good. We had him checked, off and on and stuff like that to make sure that we're doing the right things and stuff. We go to a therapist now and then to make sure that we're doing the right things, and if there are different types of exercises he could do and whatever and stuff. And we were very blessed that that surgery, from age 6 to what he is right now, 20, there's a lot of growing, and we were able to keep him stretched. He never had the surgery again. Amazing. God gave us a path, and I'm thankful we followed it. And I praise him for it. As far as his lungs, they always told us, keep him healthy, keep face mask, when he's outside, put a mask on, it'll temper the air a little bit, it'll drop the air temperature a little bit anyway, so when he goes outside, goes to school, make sure he has that mask on. And we watched it, and he watched it pretty close too. Wasn't that much longer while we were here and stuff like that. Gretchen and I separated and stuff. And I had good contact with the kids. They were with me on weekends all the time and stuff. And yet that's just another story anyway. But Brennan, he'd call me after he got home from school. And he said, Dad, it's 50 degrees out today. I didn't wear my mask. I said, oh, good job, boy. Just be careful now. Later on, he called me again. Hey, Dad, 45 degrees. I didn't wear my mask. Really? I said, be careful. Just be careful now what you're doing. And, I didn't overly think it, but my goodness sakes, there's a little boy that didn't know nothing but tuck in, cover up, put the mask on, So, for him not having a mask on was a big deal. It wasn't no little deal to him. And so I praise him, good job. Dad, it was 40 out, the mask. Good. He was gutsy, he was trying it out. I don't know what his mom thought about that. I mean, she was a little nervous about it, but he wanted to see. He wanted to be normal like everybody else. He's never worn that mask again. Sorry. I don't know why it still affects me, but it does. So there we got him. He's 20 years old. Graduated high school. He's got his AA. Going to the University of Central Florida. He's doing all the things he's supposed to be doing. We're very thankful. We thank God for being with us, for giving him a mother that took care of him. And just thankful completely for the whole growing experience. It was something else. Nick, you want to come on up here? Just show him. He walks pretty good, doesn't he? Still stretching? Yeah. Yeah, that's important. He needs to keep up with it. He says he can feel it now and then. Still tightens up a little bit, so he still maintains. But at least I think he's probably maybe finished with his growing spurts, I would think so at this age and stuff. So he made it that far. I'm thankful for it. Guys, if we could, I have a few pictures I'd just like to show you, if you don't mind, please. Huh? This is a picture of, here we go. Blue mic. This is a picture of, well, that's Nicholas's hand. This is Brendan's hand. I don't know if it's very clear. I don't know. From here I can hardly see. He takes his whole hand just to reach around a 5-year-old's finger. There isn't much there. Long and lanky, I guess is what it was, but it's something. I mean, his 5-year-old hand is small in the first place, and then it makes him look small. And that was September 8th, so he was 4 days old there. Is it on?
Yeah, it's on. Just hold it.
Oh, okay. Have the next picture, please. This is a picture of him. You can see the surgery marks on his back there. That's where they went between his ribs to close that ductus arterius off. And if we have another next picture, please. Here's just a picture of Gretchen with that little bottle that she just put up to him so he'd work with that. He was only 21 days old there. Here's a picture of him. Well, he has all his tape on and whatever, but that's a 3x5 picture of Nicholas in the background. Looks like a pretty good sized picture. But he's in his little isolate there and keeping him warm and going. And the next one, please. Here she's cleaning him. Start seeing a little bit more of his face as he was coming along. Next one, please. Here they finally got the stuff off of his face as far as the tubes out of him, and that was October 8th. And then they started doing, as you see the oxygen tube up there, they'd blow oxygen in his face just to maintain him. And then from then on, I believe they put the PAP, the little jets in, I can't remember what the name is, I lost it. Anyway, but they had to keep feeding him oxygen and stuff. Here on this day, they took him from the isolate. He's able to maintain his temperature, and they put him in a normal ped bed for other children. And the next one, please. Here Gretchen's trying to feed him. We're getting close to taking him home here and stuff, and he had to drink. So we work with him, try to get him to taste, get him to work with it, to know actually what he's doing, and start taking it. Like I say, they're small. Their jaws aren't really strong yet. It just takes time. And the next one. Yeah, this is probably his first bath, I believe, and the expression in his face pretty much says it. What are we doing? I don't think he looked away from her. I tell you, his trust, yes, it definitely was. That was 2 days before we took him home, so he was doing well. He was maintaining his temperature, that kept the room warm and stuff like that, and everything was going well. So it was nice to see the improvements as he was. The next one, please. And here we got him home. So that was a wonderful, finally getting him in his home. So, yeah. Here's just a picture I just threw in there. That's Nicholas, proud brother, So they were playing. They were having a nice time. So Nick always wanted a brother, so he got him. Yeah. So we have one more, I think. Oh, we had him confirmed in the church back where I grew up and stuff like that, and that was his day of his confirmation. So, and then here's a picture, Brennan, kindergarten picture. As you can see, he still had his braces on and stuff, and that was the school year before he had the surgery on his legs of cutting the hamstrings and stuff. So I thought that was a nice picture to show up anyway and stuff. So I can just say, well, we were in the hospital and stuff, and they'd bring these 8-pound children in and stuff like that. Wow, we were so used to seeing this little one, and then these normal ones would come through. They were monsters, Your eyes get so focused on what's there and stuff, and then it was. So I tell you, you have a normal pregnancy, and things go well. Thank God, because it doesn't always happen, and it's a blessing. And I am too. Thank you.
Wow. Now you know why I asked Glen to come and share that testimony with us. Let's have a prayer together. Thank you, Glen. Thank you very much. I know that stretched you a little bit, but I hope it's not the last time. Let's have prayer. Father in heaven, we are thankful that you hear our prayers. Thank you for the incredible journey you took the Schilds family on. And thank you for revealing to us today what the love of a mother can do. Father, I pray that we will appreciate our mothers, our spiritual mothers, that we will honor our father and our mother. Father, that we will appreciate our lives. We forget how many blessings we have until we hear a story like this again. And Lord, in each of our lives, there are things happening that nobody knows about. Until we hear something like this, we realize that each of us have a story. Each of us are sustained by your providence. And Lord, I just pray that today again we will gain a new respect and a new honor for one another. That we won't live on the surface, but that we will embrace one another, knowing that each person has a heart-wrenching story to tell. Lord, this world is full of hurts and challenges. This world is full of pain and heartache. And I pray that each one of us will gain a fresh, new sensitivity to help relieve that painful journey that brothers and sisters are on all around us. So Holy Spirit, we invite you into our hearts today. Sensitize us, give us compassion, break us, and give us the mind and the heart and the love of Christ anew today. Lord, I thank you for Brennan and the gifts you've given to him. And I pray that you'll continue showing him how you have a purpose for his life, as you saved him as that tiny little helpless baby. And Lord, maybe each of us is a preemie, born into sin, helpless, vulnerable. And just maybe you are our Heavenly Father that has nurtured us just like Glen and Gretchen nurtured this little tiny, helpless, vulnerable little preemie to be a healthy, strong, talented young man. Speak to us, Lord, moment by moment, day by day, is our prayer in Christ's name. Amen. As always, our service transitions into a prayer service. So those who would like to just have special prayer, the men meet in the back there by the camera, the ladies here by the piano in the front. We invite you all to stay for lunch, and I invite Glen and Elaine and the rest of your family just to stand at the door with us as we exit. Thank you.